Well, hello, White Sox fans, and welcome to another edition of White Sox Daily Live. My name is Ian Eskridge. I'm here with my co-host, the Danny Miller. How you doing, Danny?
Doing okay. Just really looking forward to getting into this thing tonight. I spent some time away for the weekend yet again.
Good.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Uh, but in true fashion, I was able to catch some White Sox Twitter to keep me abreast of what was going on over the weekend. And all I'll say is there is a lot to unpack here tonight, brother.
uh,
So, I'm really looking forward to it. The last 48 hours have been some of the most interesting of the season and not for all the right reasons. So, anywho, how you doing, man? What's going on in Ian's world?
I'm doing well. Just got back. We were out of town. Me and John Rudels out traveling, and we went to a Cardinals game, went to a Royals game last week, and then we had like a little family reunion thing down in Missouri and hung out with some family. That was nice. Um, video was a little lacking this weekend because I was gone, and there's that. But otherwise, I of course saw uh, the stuff over the weekend, and we'll get into that obviously. Not really any way that you can get around talking about that because it's
No.
just such a debacle.
Yeah, I'll
um,
say this. Some of this stuff I really don't want to talk about, to be completely honest with you,
yeah.
but we do a White Sox podcast slash live stream here on Twitch and YouTube. And unfortunately, as much as I would not like to talk about it, I think it's pretty much expected, especially when it's as big and blown up as some of these things have become. So, it is what it is. I guess we'll say our piece and then hopefully, be done with it after this night's show.
I you
What
know
do you
I
think, man?
I don't think that we're going to be done with it, but we can hope that we're done talking about it. I'm watching the White Sox Yankees game right now on my TV here, and Giancarlo Stanton versus Lane Ramsey, and Lane is having a little bit of a tough time. His first outing yesterday, he got four guys out, and that was awesome. And now he just walked the bases loaded. So, um, Lane will have the tendency to possibly do that every once in a while, but he's got really nasty stuff. So, hopefully he can manage to figure his way out of this. Um,
Yeah, like you and I were talking before the show a little bit here. I will say this: I know a lot of folks were up in arms over, you know, trading away a good portion of the bullpen. And the thing is with the White Sox, we've talked about this a lot on this show in the past. The one thing that the White Sox have been able to develop for many, many moons now is bullpen pitching. So I'm not overly concerned at the moment. If Lane Ramsey has one of his outings where he kind of, fumbles a little bit, it's totally fine. It's a lost season at this point. Let him get his, take his licks and get his lumps and continue to, develop at the major league level. Because if anybody's been paying attention, he's done pretty much everything he needs to do down in, in the minors. So
yeah.
it's his time. So no big deal. And hopefully we see a few more of these guys do exactly the same thing as we'll, get into a little bit more tonight on the show.
Yeah. So one of the things that we had talked about at one point, post draft, and I think it was last week. And the thing that I had mentioned to you that maybe there might be an issue with some of the guys that the White Sox have been drafting, and not getting guys from winning programs that don't really possibly have, you know, we the, we're going to get into the culture bit about the White Sox culture. But what
We are indeed.
Yeah, but one of the things that I wanted to bring up is as far as the cultures, you have to have guys that know how to win. And, we can sit here and we can look at, all of the metrics and everything, but there are certain things that you can't necessarily, like when you draft these guys in there, you have to build this kind of culture and not have a, like just kind of a they'll figure it out thing. You kind of have to get like a winning culture going to get these guys to understand how to win and expect to win. And Clint Hurdle made a tweet yesterday. Was it 2 days ago?
The ever quotable Clint Hurdle, by the way.
Yeah.
The guy comes up with some really good ones, I will say.
And he got dropped by the Pirates, and that is what that is, whatever. But I happen to really like the quote that this tweet that he put out there, and I'm gonna go ahead and bring that up now. Oh, and I forgot to take the stinger off.
Hey-oh. Well, it's fun. It's fun.
So much fun. It is a nice transition,
as a
but
White
it's
Sox
a little
fan,
long.
Well, as a White Sox fan, you never get sick of the pinwheels.
Yeah. So I have to say, Kyle Body from Driveline says, I woke up today and I saw this tweet from Clint Hurdle throwing my company under the bus. And, Clint and him had a little bit of a conversation on Twitter, and it ended up being that Clint said, hey, it's not that I don't respect what you guys do and not that your information isn't invaluable, which it absolutely is. But
100% is.
But, and like I completely agree with him. There's a thing where you have to have guys that have guts. And speaking of that, this has been a very odd couple of days on White Sox Twitter, and there's a lot of people at each other's throats. And one of the things that has been said about one Tim Anderson is that he had the guts to step up and throw hands. And so I'm going to go ahead and I chopped up a little of the video from the game the other night, and I'm going to go ahead and bring that up so we can watch that, and then we will discuss.
All right.
First base, fair ball, tracing the paint to the right field corner. Colas has a shot at him. Oscar's throw is not in time.
He just missed him at second base. This is another rocket of a throw, and now...
Oh, boy.
Now
oh, my goodness. Here come the benches. Off we go. It started with Anderson and Ramirez. Swings being taken. Kopech had to hold him back, and everybody's spilling out here in Cleveland. Andrew Vaughn is doing a great job of making sure that Tim Anderson cannot go where he wants to go right now.
I think Darryl needs to really help him here because Tim is a really strong guy and Andrew is having some problems holding him back. Touki Toussaint has been trying to shepherd Tim Anderson out because you don't want a lengthy suspension to go with the ejection.
And now here come the benches some more. Pedro Grifol has having words. Yaz just came sprinting back up the stairs in his catcher's gear, and we have some version of round 2. Eddie Rodriguez is in there. With DeMarlo Hale.
Who seems to want a piece of Pedro.
Evidently. Oh my goodness, Mike Sarbaugh now getting after Pedro Grifol. And off we go, spilling into foul territory in as long of a brawl as you're going to see in Major League Baseball nowadays. And it's not over.
No, it's still going on, and there's still a few guys ready to unload some punches in this one. Well,
oh my goodness, Tim Anderson is out of the dugout again. And Andrew Vaughn is having to restrain him back to the dugout. Eloy Jimenez is just totally apoplectic, and maybe he hurt himself in all of this.
That's usually what.
So, I'll open this up to you. Who's at fault?
Oh man, see, I was really hoping to get your opinion on this because honestly, I got a couple of things to say. But you know what? Since you asked, I'll go ahead and throw it out there. I don't know really who's at fault here because I don't know what was said that made Tim throw the gloves down like a hockey player on the ice. Obviously he took exception to whatever Jose Ramirez, had to say. I know I read later on that Jose Ramirez's excuse was that Timmy tagged me hard. He tagged me. He put the tag on me hard. There's a lot of speculation out there that, it goes back to the game before, the day before, where, Tim may have pushed another player's hand off the bag to get an out. There's been a little bit of, some tensions between the Guardians and the White Sox in the past. There's a lot of speculation on all that, but the reality is I don't really know what was said. Tim may have put a swipe tag on, Jose's head, but honestly, it looks like he caught the ball and tried to make a play on a guy who was going headfirst into second base. So
who slid through second
that's
base.
baseball.
Yeah,
right. Who actually slid through second base? That's baseball. Things like that are going to happen, right? Now, Jose Ramirez giving Tim the old cup check while he's down on the ground is another. That's another issue that I don't see a problem with Tim taking. With taking some. I guess say taking an issue with that. You're gonna go. Flailing at my junk. I'm not gonna be happy about that. But honestly, I don't really care who's at fault. I don't care who won or lost the damn fight. There's a lot of this stuff going back and forth. There's a lot of Sox fans that are out there that are trying to defend Tim Anderson, saying, he didn't get knocked out. He didn't get deboed. He was already stumbling and fell down. There's a contingent of folks that are like, he lost a fight. There's a contingent of folks that are out there that are saying, what fight? It was a couple of guys throwing haymakers. To be completely honest, in my perspective, the whole thing was that Jose Ramirez got lucky to connect as well as he did with that one because his head was turned away and looking down because Tim Anderson was trying to put, some gloves on him too. And he connected on one. Whoop-de-doo. I don't really care who won or who lost. My take on the whole thing is it's baseball. We've seen benches clear before. There's always going to be one side who thinks they're right and the other side who thinks they're right, and people are going to come to their own conclusions. And the reality is I don't particularly like to watch brawls unless it's, Yoenis Cespedes trying to take on an entire team by himself. That was quite funny.
Yeah, I know.
But
what's that? Dude with the Reds. Trying to remember his name off the top of my head. He's been terrible this last 2 years, so I can't off the top of my head think of who it is. It's the relief pitcher for the Reds, and I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, no, fights like that are fun. But yeah, this, I will say I don't think that either one is at fault necessarily, but I will say, everybody wants to paint Jose Ramirez as being innocent with the whole thing. And, when somebody gets up and starts putting their finger, 2 inches away from your eyes.
Right. That's the other part.
Yeah. And the thing is, I don't know if you've seen, but, Jose Ramirez is saying, "Oh, I'm sorry that I did this," and teammates that know me, know that I'm not like that, and I've reached out to Tim trying to apologize, and I haven't gotten any response back. Well, I mean,
why should you?
Yeah, I'm just saying, Pusher asks in the chat, why is Ramirez so mad in the first place? And I don't have an answer, because to me it didn't look, like if you're sliding head first and you're sliding through the bag by a couple of feet on a play like that, to me it looked kind of like he was just going out of his way to try and start something. And
yeah,
with the attitude, which he got up, he's, it was it was a baseball play as far as I'm concerned.
It's exactly the words I was about to use.
Yeah.
It was a baseball play. There was no reason to take exception to any of it. And unfortunately, Jose did.
Yeah.
And Tim took exception to what Jose had to say about it. And like you say, you're sticking your fingers in my face. Like I said just a few minutes ago, right before he stuck his fingers in his face, he took a swipe at TA's junk while TA was standing over him. TA was starting to make a move away from him, and he took a swipe at his cup, his groin area. Dude, what do you expect? Everybody wants to put this on Tim Anderson, but quite frankly, Tim Anderson made a baseball play. He didn't go out of his way to field the ball so that he had to make that swipe tag across his helmet. I don't get the hate and the disdain towards Tim for that. And I won't say, I'm not going to put any blame on anybody. I'm just going to say that it was a baseball play and things got out of hand.
Yeah. I don't know. It's like both of them pushed the umpire.
Right.
And to me, it looked like Jose Ramirez was ready to start throwing down just as quick as TA was. And TA getting a 6-game and Jose Ramirez getting a 3-game.
I was going to make. Thank you.
I mean, I'm not saying, I'm just saying that to me, states that Jose Ramirez did less wrong than TA did, which
and I don't find that.
The first person to start wagging fingers and wagging tongues was Ramirez.
Instigator.
Yeah, totally. And, TA may have thrown the first punch, but, to paint
again,
Jose Ramirez as innocent in this whole thing is kind of ridiculous. And
I mean, the name of this show is Nuts and Guts, and I don't know that Tim Anderson threw the first punch. Like I said, Jose Ramirez took a swipe at making he wanted to turn Timmy's nuts into a punching bag before anything even happened. Yeah. It's not a speed bag, bro.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, so I mean that's pretty much how I feel about it. Now, the thing that I've seen is that there's a lot of people up in arms on social media, and there's one of two opinions. There's the TA's nothing but problems and they should get rid of him. And then there's other people are saying that TA is the only guy on the team who seems to care or has any heart. And personally, we got some Aaron Boone yelling at the umpire action going on right now.
Yeah, he's not liking the strike zone.
Yeah, wah.
Oh, here we go. He's gonna draw a line.
It's a two. Yeah, this is.
I mean, let's be honest. The zone, I'm looking. I'm watching the folks in the front row, and they can hear every word, and they are all grinning.
Yeah,
Every last one of them is smiling and chuckling over there. So there must be some. I'd love to be a fly on the wall right about now because apparently they are entertained.
Yeah.
Oh,
All right. So to get back to that, the other half of people are, like they're saying that TA is the only one with heart. So today a story came out, and as this pertains to TA, I figured I would bring this up since it's in the same thing, and this is like one of the main like blast off points for Twitter, as far as like people either hating on TA or defending TA. So Shane Reardon from 670 The Score happened to put up a tweet and told a story on 670 The Score today on the Parkins and Spiegel show. And more or less, the day before the All-Star break, Yasmani Grandal was not in the lineup. He apparently took exception to the fact that he wasn't in the lineup. He said, well, if I'm not in the lineup, then I'm going to leave a day early, or I'm going to leave today before the game, because if I'm not in the lineup, I'm leaving. And so they told him not to, his coaching staff told him not to, whatever. And apparently TA said, well, if he wants to leave, I'll buy his plane ticket and drive him there myself. And apparently Yasmani heard about it or heard it or whatever, came in, and TA was in the tub and apparently slapped him across the face. I don't doubt it. Yasmani is disputing it, saying that it's, that it didn't happen or whatever.
His exact words were not real. It was the only. He just
No.
gave a 2-word.
What he said is, this is unreal.
Unreal. Right?
Yeah, which but he said it's also, he said that it's not, it's not it didn't happen or whatever. But right. This is more fuel to the fire, saying that TA is the only person on this team that cares, and he's got more heart than everybody. I can see that, yeah, maybe that might possibly be a thing, but I can also possibly see, and tell me if you're picking up what I'm putting down here. Maybe he just doesn't like Yaz, and he's saying, well, if he wants to go, I'll buy him a ticket and I'll drive him there myself.
Yeah.
I mean, and if this did happen, like as this story is purported to have, I would imagine that the dislike is mutual. Yeah. The whole situation's just a complete cluster, and just not fun.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you saw this, but now, since all this has gone down in the last 48 hours with, the bench is clearing, and I'll use air quotes, brawl, because, I wouldn't call that a brawl. It was a couple of haymakers thrown on both sides, and then a bunch of guys jaw jacking and pushing and shoving. Nothing really came of any of it. You know what I mean? But since that's all happened, there has been a media storm, right? About, and a fan and Twitter storm and social media storm about all the stuff that's going on. And what gets me now is the out of market media that wants to jump in on this thing and paint Tim Anderson and the White Sox maybe even worse than they need to be. It's pretty obvious to us who have been watching the White Sox all season long that and I shouldn't even say this season, the last few years, that there is something systemically wrong within the organization. That's nothing new. But now we've got these out of market people wanting to pile on, And I don't know if you saw this, but Daniel Greenberg came out just within the last hour or two. I think it was about 2 hours ago, and said, according to Jesse Rogers at ESPN, uh, Tim Anderson moved his locker to the corner and is completely disconnected from this team. Moved his locker to the corner at the start of the season. I would say that's pretty irresponsible reporting. Number one, because it is not unheard of for guys to move lockers from one season to the next. Number one. Number two, generally, corner locker spots that are away from the media frenzy are reserved for veteran players who draw a lot of media attention. Not only that, the ones that do draw a lot of media attention, there's actually more space down there in those corner areas for the media to come down, so that these guys aren't completely surrounded and stuffed into a 4x4 space, and they've got microphones and cell phones and cameras shoved in their face. This is nothing new. So, those types of things. And Jesse Rogers, I mean, of all people, he really, but when Jesse Rogers reports this kind of stuff, the rest of the out of market media jumping in and really kind of blowing this thing up, it kind of just feels like it feels dirty to me. None of these guys know what's going on inside the White Sox clubhouse, and they're just kind of piling on. Part of me thinks that some of these out of media guys are like, well, let's roll this thing up, and hopefully the White Sox don't pick up Tim Anderson's option next year, and we can get ourselves a shortstop on the cheap in the offseason. I
Yeah.
don't know, man.
Yeah,
I
I
really
mean,
don't know.
I didn't.
It's a shame the way it's all going down.
Oh yeah, it's ridiculous. Jesse Rogers is a Cubs guy technically, and he's
But he's a Chicago guy.
Yeah, he's covering the White Sox for ESPN 1000 when they got when they picked up the White Sox. I didn't hear the radio segment this morning. I've only heard the stuff going on in the about things that he did say, and he was chucking buses left and right, saying that Eloy's not a hard worker, Yohan's a malcontent, blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, now Jesse Rogers is a big name on the national news front because he's the one that's breaking all these things. And so he's like, oh, I wonder how much run I could get out there in the national spotlight. And, I'm not saying that this stuff is not true. And we'll get to the Keenan Middleton and Lance Lynn stuff in a little bit. I kind of wanted to break all this stuff up into a couple of different segments just to give us a breather from all this nonsense for a few minutes. It's not that the White Sox fans have any illusion that this team gets along. It's not they have any illusion that the team is good, because we've seen the performance for the last 2 years. I mean, just things have just not been good. So yeah, it's been ugly, and this fisticuffs between Ramirez and TA certainly didn't help things at all. And you got Kopech getting a game, you got Clase getting a game, Pedro, and what's the third base coach for the Guardians also getting a game. I think somebody else got a game. I mean, it's just
no. But to your point, the big thing in that whole thing is why is Tim getting 6 games and Jose only getting 3, and obviously TA is in the lineup tonight. Which no shock to me. I would be shocked if Jose Ramirez was not also in the lineup.
Both of them are
Guardians.
appealing, actually.
Well, and that's why I'm saying it's not a shock, because the players are part of a union. The union is going to advise anytime that there's a suspension, no matter what the suspension is doled out for. They're going to advise to appeal that suspension. And I would say probably 98 to 99% of the time there will be a reduction in those suspensions in most cases.
Yeah.
So it's pretty much the obvious choice to do so. But regardless, the fact that they've got different, levels of punishment is kind of a shocker. So, we'll see how the final outcome plays out. But yeah, I can't agree with you more on that.
Yeah. Garrett Cole just left the game at, I think, 105 pitches. Just gave up 2 singles in a row, one to Gavin Sheets, and then Trace Thompson pinch ran for him, and then Elvis Andrus singled to right field. Trace Thompson. Trade deadline. We got the first couple of deals talked about last week with the Gio and Raylo trade for Edgar Caro and Kai Bush, and then Lance Lynn and Joe Kelly for Nick Nastrini, Jordan Leisure, and Trace Thompson, and also Kendall Graveman for Corey Lee from the Astros. On the because we did our last stream on the 31st, the trade deadline was on the 1st. I was traveling, so I couldn't do a stream with you, so we missed out on that. But a couple of deals did go down. We'll talk about 2 of these deals first, and then we'll talk about the bigger one last. So, actually, you know what? Let's start with Jake Burger. Jake Burger gets traded to the Marlins for left-handed starting pitcher Jake Eater, who's in Double-A. And he had TJ, and he was one of the top pitchers in the minor leagues. And he ended up having to have TJ in 21, I believe. And he missed 22, and he's been making his way back this season. And he's looked pretty good. He didn't look great in his first start, but I don't really put any stock into that whatsoever because, when a guy gets completely uprooted and whatever, I'm not surprised at all if they don't perform as well as they normally do. And you can look no farther than all of the rest of the guys that the White Sox acquired. Not one of them's had like a really phenomenal start to their White Sox minor league career. Edgar Caro, on the other hand, has in the last like 4 or 5 games or whatever, he did manage to. I think he drove in like 5 or 6 RBI in the series against the Trash Pandas, his old team, over the last week. So Jake Burger goes for Jake Eater. On a baseball level, this is, again, one of those things that White Sox Twitter has been going off about one way or the other. Some people are like, we got a very good value for Jake Burger. Other people are like, how could you trade Jake Burger? He's not the problem. If anything, he's one of the guys that you wanted to keep. Which side of the fence are you on?
Well, I have a couple of different ways to look at this one. Yeah, Jake Burger was a very likable guy. The whole story of everything that he went through, going through all the injuries, making his way back, especially after, hearing God knows where these rumors come from, but, White Sox Twitter was, just overflowing with rumors about what happened to Jake Burger during his torn Achilles, his stand down. And there was stuff like, oh, he's sitting at home being depressed and playing Fortnite and eating pizza and gaining 300 pounds and all these things. And Jake Burger paid no attention to any of that stuff, got himself right, healed up, came back, worked his way through the minor league system and made his way up to this, to the ball club, and was a very serviceable fill-in for Yoan Moncada. Was he the defensive player that Yoan Moncada is? No, but the stick talks. And his wife Ashlyn was just a huge influence in White Sox Twitter. Everybody loved her and loved her energy. All the pics that she would throw up with Jake's baby, and he was here for this home run and he was here for daddy's next home run, and all of that stuff was great. It was a great story. that being said, especially now with all this stuff coming out about, Yohan Moncada, if any of it's true about him being just a malcontent in the clubhouse. But, you know, I think because Jake Berger was under so much control, so much team control, I I personally would have liked to have gotten more back for him. I think, yes, Eater has got a high potential. But again, as we've said before, and we'll say it probably more often in the future, prospects are suspects. So whether or not Eater pans out, excuse me, is another question. But being that he's a pitcher, Sox tend to have a better reputation on development of pitchers. Yeah, it's tough to see Jake go. At the same time, he wasn't the greatest defender. So I don't really know how to feel about it. I hope that Eater turns out to be everything that these scouts are touting him on, but that remains to be seen. So I'm kind of on the fence, to be completely honest with you, with that move, because I myself really like Jake a lot. So what do you think? What's your feeling on the whole situation?
So I have a few thoughts as well. One of the main things that I have is that the same people that complain about the White Sox developmental system are the same people that are complaining about Jake Berger getting traded. Meaning,
right?
They say that the White Sox can't develop anybody, and that,
But he is a 100% homegrown talent.
But he is a homegrown talent, and he's, he's hitting like, I don't know, in Miami, he's only hitting like 213 or something like that. He was only hitting roughly around there here as well. He just had a bunch of home runs, and he had a great attitude and a great story. And I like Jake as a person, but to complain about the developmental system and say they can't develop anybody, and then complain when they trade a guy who's hitting 213 despite his OPS is, fairly high because he did hit quite a few home runs is kind of goofy, That said, I like Jake Eater, and I like the fact that his floor is high. Is that he's already had TJ. His slider is just gross. His fastball is nice with a lot of carry. He changes his speed a lot, changes his eye levels a lot. Yeah, he had a rough first outing, but I like the deal. I don't know that Jake Berger is going to play well enough on defense that it's something that I'm going to be mad about.
Right.
Like he may hit 40 home runs. It's entirely possible. He might turn into Max Muncy, and that's great. And, that works for the Dodgers. But the Dodgers also spend a lot of money, and they go out and they get a Mookie Betts. They get a Freddie Freeman. They go out and do all sorts of awesome things that the White Sox just do not do.
Right.
And, if that can get us a guy who's going to be a solid 2 in the rotation and he's left-handed, I'm all for it.
Oh, you're left-handed, you say?
Yeah.
What is this? Who is this left-handed? What is this thing that you speak of?
Exactly. And
I have not seen a left-handed starter in so long. I'm not sure I know what one looks like.
Exactly. You look at the draft, everybody except for one guy was left-handed hitters. They drafted a bunch of left-handed pitching. Last year, they drafted a bunch of left-handed pitching. It's almost like, they realize that there is an issue with left-handed pitching, and Mike Shirley is doing something to address that. So, yes, I'm sad that Berger went. But, when we talked with Nick a couple weeks back, we mentioned that Berger could be traded, and I wouldn't be surprised if he was traded. Guess what? He got traded. So, I'm not mad about it. And
No, they definitely got value back for him. I just like I said, with the amount of control Jake had, I was hoping for a little more, but I'm not upset with what we got in return. All the scouts seem really high. I mean, and I'm not talking about White Sox scouts. I'm talking about scouts across baseball are really high on this kid.
Yeah.
So, you know, uh we'll see how it plays out. But yeah, it's just a tough one to swallow because he was a likable guy. But likable guy and performance on the field are two different things if you want to be a contender. And unfortunately, these things happen. So yeah, it's a
yep.
tough pill to swallow, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Now, having said that, Yohan Moncada is not exactly swinging it right now either, and nobody's taking his contract, so we're going to be stuck with him at third for a while.
Yeah,
For the
that's
next couple of seasons.
Yeah, that's another thing is that no matter what happens, he's here at least next year.
Yeah, at bare minimum next year.
Nobody's gonna take a $24 million contract for a guy hitting 215 with a 583 OPS. It's just not happening,
Right.
And especially since he doesn't stay on the field enough. Now, if he can put together a nice half season, then okay, great. But he just struck out swinging, and
yeah, and it's difficult to see where he's going to be next year. This thing about his back keeps recurring. Pedro Grifol, of all people, coming out and talking about this thing because Pedro Grifol had a very similar injury to his back that derailed his professional career. So, we'll see how that kind of goes in the off season, whether they opt to rehab him or do some kind of surgical repair. But his future is kind of in limbo at the moment too. Obviously, they're going to let him play through it for the rest of the season, but we'll see how things go in a couple months here.
Yeah. Zach Remillard sacrificed bunt and then an error by old friend Tommy Canley. Andrew Benintendi sac fly makes it 3-1 White Sox, and Luis Robert doubles, bringing in Andrus and Zach Remillard. White Sox up 5-1. Eloy and Yohan both strike out to end the inning. So that's awesome. But
Eloy chasing in ridiculous fashion, by the way.
5-1, 5-1, I guess. So
yeah, I mean, I'll take a win over Garrett Cole any day. You know what I mean? The guy's got Cy Young written all over him right now.
Yep.
So to come out here and do what we're doing, very happy to see that.
Yeah. So another move that was made by the White Sox, and this one's interesting, as you are talking about one of the former top pitching prospects in baseball at one point for the Padres and then for the Rays as well. Luis Patino is purchased by the White Sox, and I don't know. I guess we see where this one goes. He's been kind of underwhelming. His command's been a little bit of an issue for him in basically at every level he's gone to.
I've seen a couple of experts go as far as calling him the biggest bust of the 21st century to this point. So, it didn't really cost the Sox much to purchase him. If they can get something out of him, that's fantastic.
Yeah, for his Charlotte debut, it was pretty underwhelming. He went two innings, gave up 2 runs, 3 hits. He walked a guy, I believe. Yeah, he walked a guy, and he struck out 1. So I don't know, but we'll see what we get out of him. Whatever, we'll see. So the other deal that was made on trade deadline day was Keenan Middleton to the Yankees for starting pitcher Juan Carrella, who pitched for the Dash on Sunday and threw a quality start, 6 innings, gave up 1 run. I think he struck out 5 or 6. Didn't walk anybody, I don't believe. Only gave up a couple of hits. Guy looks like he has his stuff together. I'm pretty thrilled with it.
Yeah. And Keenan Middleton, he had a little bit of a career revival here on the South Side. for the most part, looked like a pretty solid bullpen arm for the Sox, and the Sox made something of it. And I can't say that at first I was unhappy to see him go, but again, the Sox were in a mode of we're going to get rid of anybody who's not going to be part of this thing next year, so let's try to get what we can back for him. And it turns out that on top of getting something back, it might have been a good move to let him go because he's got a problem with flapping his gums.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. So
Yeah.
the other deals that were made post trade deadline, the White Sox pick up Brent Honeywell from off waivers from the Padres. You may remember Brent Honeywell was a top 100 prospect for quite a while. Ended up having TJ and kind of lost some of the luster. But he came into the game tonight for the White Sox. Santos, was it Santos? It was Sammy Peralta was sent back down. They brought Honeywell up. He got through his inning, not without a little bit of drama, but he went through and did that. He's got some really nasty pitches. He throws a screwball. He's got nice slider, nice changeup, nice fastball. We'll see if the White Sox can't work with him some more and develop him into something as things go on here. The White Sox also acquired 2 right-handed pitchers from the Dodgers for international bonus money. They signed they traded for Aldrin Batista, 20 years old from Dominican. He's got a low 90s sinker. His fastball is hit 97. He's got a slower low 80s slider. He does have a change that he throws every once in a while. It's not really a thing, but he had a 32.6% swinging strike rate and was second in the ACL. And I think he led the ACL in strikeouts before the trade. So he might be something. I don't know. We'll see.
I was actually just about to say of some of the lesser known moves that the White Sox made, this one intrigues me quite a bit. Again, he's still young, still kind of at the lower levels. There's some development and some time before we'll see him, make his way to an MLB ball club. But I'm kind of intrigued to see what he's going to bring to the table.
Yeah. The other guy that they picked up was also a right-handed pitcher, Maximo Martinez. He's 19 out of Venezuela. He gets up to 98 on his fastball. He's got a plus slider that's in the upper 80s. And I don't know. We'll see. Both of them are starters as of right now. We'll see where that ends up actually being. And I'm assuming that we'll probably end up seeing both of them probably with Canny later on in the season or next year in Canny because, with all those college pitchers that they've got coming from the draft, I wouldn't be surprised if those guys came up first and they allowed those guys to pitch a little bit more in the ACL before they brought them up.
Right.
The White Sox also signed a right-handed relief pitcher, Chris Muller. He was most recently in the AAA in the Rays system. And I don't know. His numbers are okay. I'm not really to me, this kind of seems like one of those deals where it's like they see something in him and they're hoping that maybe they can fine-tune a couple of things and get him to maximize his potential. I don't know. We'll see what happens there. Whatever. So the White Sox did release Alex Colomé the other day, which I was actually kind of surprised by because, not that I was expecting him to come up, not that I was expecting for him to. White Sox got 2 outs in the top of the 9th here. Brian Shaw on the mound. We'll see what happens here. I was just kind of surprised with how much of a train wreck Charlotte's pitching has been this year, and the fact that the White Sox have brought up Declan Cronin, Lane Ramsey. They sent Sammy Peralta back, but
he did get his cup of coffee.
It's just that, the fact that I don't know, maybe they were doing him a solid and hoping somebody picks him up in the, for a playoff run or something like that. That's the only thing I can figure because I don't really see a whole lot of a point to them letting him go, other than that they just don't see him as part of the future, so they're just like, whatever, we're done for this year, so we're just going to let you go. Could be. As we mentioned, Declan Cronin and Lane Ramsey both made their debuts with the White Sox. So,
like I said, about time on the Lane Ramsey thing I was feeling, but, again.
Yeah, it's not like we've been talking about that for 6 months minimum. That he would, that both of those guys would be up.
Especially with some of the flailing performances that we've seen out of, a couple of the guys in the bullpen.
Yeah, and all the injuries. I mean, with all the injuries, you figure these guys would have gotten some run somewhere. But, there was, whatever. I'll take it at this point. I'm just happy that both of those guys are getting a shot up in the bigs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brian Shaw is at 2-2 right now on McKinney in the top of the ninth. We shall see what happens. These kids are trying to get a strikeout, and then their guys.
They're trying to get a strikeout, but they're all wearing Yankees.
What?
There it is.
There it is. Man,
Ball game.
White Sox on a winning streak. I get
3 in a row. When's the last time that's happened?
Yeah, I know. They get to tear off another piece on the Jerry Reinsdorf picture.
Not
all right.
painting pretty pictures on the show tonight, Ian.
No.
I mean, now I gotta, when we go off air here, I gotta go upstairs and shove a fork in my ear to stab out my mind's eye after that one.
Mental bleach. All right, so we talked about the trade deadline and we broke up this stuff. Let's get to the Keenan Middleton comments.
Oh boy, here we go.
Keenan Middleton gets traded to the Yankees, and a report came out from Jesse Rogers last night. Go ahead and bring up.
I'm over here just woo-sighing. Woo-sa.
Go ahead and bring this quote up here.
Oh, Jesse. Go ahead and test that theory. I will hold you accountable, my good sir.
Banhammer incoming. So basically, Keenan was asked about the culture in the White Sox clubhouse, and more or less, he threw everybody in the organization in the management level under the bus, threw Gregory Santos under the bus. And so the fans were let to run free with that for a few hours.
Indeed.
Lance Lynn did a spot on Foul Territory with our friend AJ Przinsky. And he asked him if he had anything to say about it. And Lance Lynn basically said, well, I'll tell you what Keenan Middleton got wrong. And then just gave silence for 10 seconds. They kind of picked up what he was putting down.
Yeah, he alluded to the fact that he had been part of the club longer than Keenan Middleton. And that was about it.
Yeah. Middleton also mentioned that this stuff had been going on before he got there, and that that more of the same stuff was still going on. And this is all the stuff that the White Sox fans feared. That again, you have no rules, you have
Feared
clicks.
or felt like they knew, or
I mean,
is it a
I'm
little
sure
bit
that everybody thought that they knew, but they hoped that this wasn't the case, and that with how bad that team's performed, I don't necessarily know that any White Sox fan thought that this was not the case. As Grimtall mentions, Rick Hahn explained it all away, though. He came out and did a press conference, said that the T.A. Grandal thing was not true, said that Keenan Middleton, in fact, had done some unprofessional things and actually apologized to Rick Hahn before he was traded and said he would come back as a free agent, and that it's just all sour grapes, and says that we're trying to build some sort of a culture here that's going to be with winning, blah blah blah.
Yeah, tried to say that they had been forthcoming about knowing that there
All
was a
old
need
news.
to change culture. I don't really know what he means by they'd been forthcoming over the last 6 weeks or so. Sure, they said they needed to make some changes, but they didn't really go into detail about any of it. So I don't know what he's talking about. He's pulling the old Rick Hahn lawyer speak with we've been forthcoming. Not quite there, Ricky, but
Not so much.
yeah, no. But go ahead, continue. I'm sorry.
I mean, I'm just at this point, has Rick Hahn, with the way that this team has operated, and one thing that I didn't even bring up about the Jake Burger trade is that Kim Eng from the Marlins said that she had contacted Kenny Williams, and that's who made the trade of Jake Burger, was Kenny Williams. So you had people this week saying, "Oh, well, who's really in charge over there?" And so, I mean, it's just...
Well, I mean, we've all known that Kenny Williams was never going to fully give up control. I mean, this is not news, people. Honestly, people want to go out there and say, "Oh, Rick Hahn's not in charge." It was pretty obvious the keys were taken away from him a couple years ago. I don't know, when TLR was hired as the head coach. But anyways, I digress. Whether or not they came from Jerry or Kenny, we surmised years ago that when the rebuild began, that Rick Hahn had finally been given the keys to the organization. But since then, it's been obvious that he isn't pulling all of the strings.
Yeah, I mean, James Fox even said on Twitter something that I agreed with, that the fact that anybody is surprised that Rick Hahn's boss would have to have approval on a trade, or that would be involved in any of these trades, is it's kind of silly in the first place. It's not really all that surprising. I don't know. I don't doubt one single thing that Keenan Middleton said.
I don't either.
Rick Hahn said that some position player has sleeping issues and is seeing somebody for that, and he sometimes sleeps in the locker room, and the fact that, what did Keenan Middleton get it wrong that Gregory Santos was not sleeping in the dugout? Because I'm pretty sure that he wasn't wrong. Is the fact that many people, it was corroborated, by a couple of people apparently. So,
yeah, Gregory Santos. Yeah, it was known to take a nap. I've even heard from a couple of folks on White Sox Twitter, which I'm still waiting to see the pictures, but there were a few people out there that say they have photo evidence of this. So, when it comes out, you'll have your answer. But yeah, I'm with you. I don't think that Keenan Middleton is making any of these things up, which kind of is what bugs me about the statement made by Rick Hahn. So you're going to tell me that Keenan Middleton came to you to apologize about some of his behavioral issues and unprofessionalism before he was traded, and then he decided to go to New York and speak out about other people's behavioral issues? Is Rick Hahn trying to spin it as though, and you know, when he said, I'm gonna back the truck up a little bit here. He said, you know, and when I say he, I mean Rick, said that you know, when they were aware of the cultural problems within their organization, that there were certain players they needed to move. And now he's trying to make it sound like the players that got moved at the deadline were those players, meaning Keenan Middleton and Lance Lynn being two of those
And
guys.
Lucas Giolito and Kendall Graveman, they're all terrible people, and they needed to be moved because they're not the kind of culture that we want.
Without him saying it directly, that's kind of what it sounded like he was trying to say. It was like, well, you got rid of the guys that needed to be gotten rid of because those were the guys that were the problem. Those are the guys that, you know, had, you know, behavioral issues of some sort towards the culture of the organization. And I'm thinking to myself, well, first of all, we all suspected that most of those guys were going to get moved because they are on expiring contracts. They're not going to be part of the White Sox organization. They have agents that the White Sox don't particularly like to deal with. They're not going to get an extension at the time when the time comes. So we all kind of knew those guys were going away. Now you're telling me that the same guys that were on expiring contracts that were you know, desirable to other teams are the same guys that are not desirable to your team?
Wow. That is
things that make you go
quite the take. All the guys that were expiring were the problem. That's why we got rid of them. They were all the problem. Has nothing to do with our management, has nothing to do with, you know, the way the clubhouse is run. It's all these guys that, you know, they were on their way out and they just
Gio is a bum, Grimtall says. Thank you.
That's
for
right.
That.
Him and his anime.
That's quality chat room right there, buddy.
I mean, it's just like anybody that realistically believes anything that comes out of Rick Hahn's mouth at this, you know, with situations such as these, needs to have their head examined. I mean, everybody should know that he's on spin control. You know, he's trying
and that's the thing.
Make it seem like, you know, that they've got everything under control, when in fact it is 100% obvious that they have absolutely no idea what the heck's going on. And
we know we have issues. We're working to fix those issues. We fixed some of those issues by letting these guys go. Okay. Great. Fantastic. I'm not buying it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, despite the fact that, you know, everybody thinks that Jake Burger is a fantastic human. Kendall Graveman is one of the most loved teammates of every single person he's ever played with. People seem to like Gio just fine. People like Lance Lynn just fine.
You know, and I'll say this about Jake Burger. You know, we brought up Keenan Middleton's comments. We bring up Lance Lynn's agreement on Keenan Middleton's comments. You know, you can go back to the Dallas Keuchel comments a couple years ago. But the thing that a lot of people aren't talking about, the thing that people seem to be forgetting right now, is Jake Burger, the likable, lovable Jake Burger with the great story coming up through the White Sox farm system, is in his very first post-game interview as a Miami Marlin, said that the game that he played in that night, the first game he played in a Marlins uniform, was some of the most fun baseball he had played in quite some time. I'm going to go with there's, you know, anyone trying to defend the organization or, you know, Rick Hahn, obviously has to say these things as the face of the front office, right? You know, he's going to be the guy that's in front of the media. He's got to say these things. But I mean, come on, man. If you're going to go into spin control, like you call it, at least make it believable. Or, I don't know, here's a concept. We've been talking about accountability within this organization and the front office saying that there is no lack of accountability. Well, if there's no lack of accountability, then why don't you go ahead and take this one in the face and stop trying to spin it? Because I think fans would respect you more if you came out and said, you know what, we got this thing wrong.
Yeah.
We screwed up. We got it completely wrong. We're working to fix it. Stick around, see what we do. Take a line out of draft day. Don't quit now. That line with Kevin Costner and Dennis Miller. No, not Dennis Miller. What the hell is his name?
Dennis Miller.
Wow. That was the comedian.
Dennis Leary. Yeah.
Dennis Leary. Thank you. Both of them comedians, just got the last name wrong. That scene at the end where he's like, I quit. I can't coach this team. And he said, don't quit now. Just wait till you see the team I put together. Wait till you see what I do here tonight. Let me do my job. If Rick Hahn came out and said something like that,
everybody quit.
I know a lot of people don't have faith, but at the same time, I think they'd have a lot more respect for him if he just came out and said that, listen, I got it wrong. We made some changes in the last year or two here. We've got a new philosophy. We are not seeing it yet because, those changes are going to take some time to develop, but we screwed up.
Yeah.
I got egg in my face.
Be interesting.
Instead of trying to spin it off of you and put it on someone else, I think it would be interesting to see how people would take that. At least we get some honesty out of the organization.
Yeah, that's one thing that they had mentioned on the Spiegel and Parkin show earlier today is that, how much of this stuff could be avoided if there was any kind of transparency whatsoever.
Well, that's the thing. The White Sox have been known, and we've talked about it many times here too, have been known to play their cards close to their chest. But unfortunately, there are times that call for some transparency, and we don't get it even during those times.
None whatsoever. You see, yes, I did see Lynn's comments, and I mean, he can say that he's been there for 3 days, so I don't really care what he has to say about their minor leaguers. He said that their minor leaguers come up and are ready to play. Right away.
I don't know. Our minor leaguers seem like they are too. Honestly, they haven't been exposed to this idiotic culture here.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
We get the Zach Remelards, we get the Romy Gonzalez's, you get the Danny Mendick. I wouldn't say that those guys aren't prepared to come up and play with some heart.
Yeah, I mean, like, you can look at the Dodgers and see how many guys they bring up and send back down. They send down a lot of guys that they brought up. It happens all the time. Yeah. It's just one
like
of those.
Any other organization.
It's one of those things where only a percentage of guys make it, and that's just. I mean, that's the facts. Is that just there is a small percentage of guys that make it up to the major leagues, and that's just the way it is. Now, have they had guys that make more of a dent than the White Sox do? Well, I mean, I would say yes. They've got
at least in the position player realm.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I'm not discounting, and I'm not saying that the Dodgers aren't a better organization than the White Sox, because they absolutely are. But
I mean, you're really going with a high floor with that comment.
I know. I'm really taking a hard stance here, and that I'm really stepping out on a ledge. But it's not like like the thing is that when you surround your minor league guys with a better culture of the fact that you will add a Freddie Freeman, you will add a Mookie Betts. You'll pay your good players to stick around and not let them walk. That kind of stuff has a direct effect on everybody in that organization. And
hey, the White Sox paid some players. Just happened to pay them before they ever stepped foot onto a Major League Baseball field.
I mean, they kept Jose Abreu for a while. They extended him. Like, it's not that they don't do it. But, like
on a team-friendly contract.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, there's that. But, I mean, Clayton Kershaw has been with the Dodgers for a long time, and they paid him accordingly, And then they went out and acquired, a Manny Machado at the trade deadline. I mean, not that, I don't dislike the guy, which I do. But the fact is, like, they go out and they get things done because they draft well and they develop pretty well. And the White Sox, for a long time, did not draft well. And that is why this team is in this situation that it's in. Because during those Nick Hostetler drafts when the team was tanking, all those draft picks, there's like Zach Remillard. That's it. Jake Berger's gone now. You know? What else other than that? I mean, you got Lane Ramsey. Declan Cronin was a 36th draft pick, 36th round. You know, like those are the guys that are on the White Sox. Is guys like that. That's like the only guys left from the Nick Hostetler drafts. You know, and the free agents that the White Sox have picked up. You know, like you've gotten some decent performance out of some of the bullpen arms, but the position players haven't really, you know, gotten too much out of that. So, you know, it all follows one guy around. I'm just saying. And I've been saying it for a year and a half now.
A couple of years now. Right.
Yeah. So, anywho.
I'm right there with you.
So, I wanted to close tonight. I put a tweet out there for the masses that some changes are coming in the minor league system. And I'm not, you know, like I am not going to put it out there because it's kind of one of those things that unless you're told by somebody in the organization that you can put it out there, you don't, because they want to clearly they want to do it. But I'm pretty stoked that there are some changes coming here, and we'll find out about it tomorrow because they haven't announced it today. So it's going to be tomorrow. But there's some you know, exciting stuff going, and
yeah, finally some promotions and some moves that will excite some folks, I'm sure.
Yeah, and you know, like, you know, I posted that some people are going to be, you know, doing cartwheels over some of the promotions that are coming, and you know, of course, I said movement in the system, and so of course everybody started chiming in, asking if Pedro was getting fired or if Rick Hahn was leaving, and you know, so clearly some people are not going to be happy with the news, but nothing I can do for you, you know, is that you know, I don't have any control over the front office, and they certainly wouldn't announce ahead of time if Rick Hahn was leaving. It would just kind of be one of those things that just dropped on everybody's head, and it would be crazy.
No,
but
and you know, I don't see. I think it would be, you know, totally not feasible to you know, cut the head off right after the trade deadline.
Yeah, that would. I mean, yeah,
it just doesn't make any sense at this point in time. For him, it doesn't make sense for him to resign. It doesn't make sense for the White Sox to let him go at this particular moment.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Who was it? It was Jim Hendry with the Cubs that stuck around after being essentially being told he was being let go. He stuck around and did the draft for the Cubs anyway, and then as soon as the draft was over, he was gone. I don't think that that's going to be what happens with Rick Hahn. Do you think? And I'm just going to throw this out here as a last minute thing. I'll bring that up here for you in a second here, Grimtall. Do you think there's any chance that how about this? What's the percentage that Pedro Grifol's here next year? And I'm gonna bring this.
What do I
up.
think? What it is?
Yeah. Tell me what percentage you think that that Pedro Grifol is going to be here. Here is the tweet for you, Grimtall. I'll bring it up on the screen.
Do I believe he should stay? I'm on the fence about that one, only because you know, if he stepped into a clubhouse with all these lingering cultural issues that we've been talking about all night long, I would say he's probably he had no idea what he got himself into, and why probably was unprepared to handle it. And I think, given the White Sox past, if he were to present that to Jerry and Rick and Kenny and the talking heads and powers that be in that type of way, I think he could probably stick around for another year, 2, 3. You know what I mean? And I need Rick Hahn to give me a team that is mine to go out there and perform the way I want them to perform and to buy into my philosophy. Besides the fact that, again, if we go back to the history of things with the White Sox, it's difficult to get fired
It is.
anywhere in this ball club. You gotta, I don't know, you gotta sexually assault someone or murder someone or I don't know. And then they're like, well, I guess
If we
we should
have to.
let him go. I don't know. So yeah, I'm gonna go with 80. I know a lot of folks are like, what? Like he needs to go yesterday.
You're not
If he can't,
necessarily disagreeing with that. You're just saying that you don't think he will.
right?
Yeah. My main issue here with that line of thinking is that how do you go from a from a team where you don't set any rules, there are no consequences.
Hi, Mom.
Hey, thanks for
Hey.
the follow there, Legacy Java man. Appreciate it. How do you go from a team where you have no rules, no repercussions for anything that happens? How do you go from that to trying to start a new culture in your second year after you've had this kind of a colossal train wreck of a first season? How do you go into the next season? Do you then in your second season say, okay, well, after seeing how it was done the first year, now I'm going to make a bunch of changes, because you still have a bunch of the same guys coming back next year. So how do you,
I don't know how I don't know how you go. Now, here's the other thing too, though. Now, like I said earlier, and I agree with you on the fact that I don't believe Keenan Middleton was lying about any of what he said. But at the same time, we heard that there were rules put into place, going back to spring. That there were going to be, team meetings. Guys were going to show up for, batting practice at this time. They were going to do their, workouts and their fielding practice at this time. And just none of this. I did it earlier or do it tomorrow. We heard all those things, right? So I believe there probably were some rules set in place. What I think happened though is when you get some of this bad culture that was going around, I think those rules probably were not enforced. I'm not saying that there weren't any rules. I just think that, maybe when I say he was faced with some things that he probably was totally unprepared for, I think that's what I'm saying is that it was a group of guys, especially, when it came out that there were a bunch of veterans, a la Bob Nightingale saying there were a bunch of veterans that didn't want to be here anymore and would like to have been traded at the trade deadline. When you get a group of guys that kind of team up against you and against the culture that you are trying to instill, makes it really difficult to enforce those rules and still be able to field a team.
Yeah, no,
You
I mean,
So,
if you take the different reports and then kind of combine them, like, I could understand how you could look at it that way, that, if there's already an entrenched, like, bad feeling in the clubhouse, how that's going to affect things, and that maybe you might need to bring some fresh blood in here to kind of
honestly, I don't know, but
I mean,
I'm trying to
yeah,
fit the pieces together and see where they go. But we'll never really know how far that rabbit hole goes.
so you're telling me that you don't know definitively what happened in the clubhouse, and you don't understand that you don't
No,
know
and I will
exactly
never
what
claim
happened?
to either, even though White's Twitter seems to think otherwise. Whew. And
Yep.
I should say, is it White Sox X now? Is
I
that
don't.
what do we call it anymore?
I don't know. I had actually wondered about that. Like, we call it White Sox Twitter. Is it going to be WSX now instead of WST? I don't know. I'll let somebody else with a, bigger pay grade tell me what I'm going to call that. So I don't know. We'll see what happens in the next week. I'm kind of curious. This is one thing that we were talking about leading up to the trade deadline, is that we were thinking maybe Yasmani Grandal would be gone, and that Elvis Andrus would be gone. And I know that a bunch of people on White Sox Twitter X were calling for that as well, and I had mentioned it on Twitter as well. I know that if, and somebody said, oh, well, these guys have been on the 40-man for the year, so you can't trade them. Not true. You still can't trade them, but you have to pass them through regular waivers to your minor leagues to be able to trade them. Will they try and do that with Yasmani Grandal and Elvis Andrus? I don't know. But if you noticed over the last, a week or so, Elvis Andrus has turned into Elvis Andrus from August of last year. And he's been hitting pretty stinking well, just like he did last year in August. So maybe, how you have Abreu, August Abreu, maybe you've got August Andrus as well. Maybe it's the double A, that's what does it. I don't know. But we'll see what happens. Maybe we'll be seeing about some movement here, and maybe somebody gets dumped, DFA'd, whatever. I'm not expecting a whole lot. But at the same time, I don't really see much of a point in starting these guys that we know are going to be not here next year. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, so we'll see what happens. So, you got anything else?
No. Culture.
Culture.
Yep. That's it. What's the word of the day?
The Culture Club.
Ouch.
Boy George. Culture Club.
Yeah.
So at Daily White Sox on Twitter. Karma Chameleon.
Yes, sir.
Very true. It comes and goes. So at Daily White Sox on Twitter. Boy George and the White Sox, exactly. Tumble for you. Yeah, I will tumble for you. You can search us up on YouTube, whitesoxdaily.substack.com. We have a YouTube page. We have a Facebook group. My name is Ian Eskridge at iEskridge on Twitter. At Danny Miller WSD is where you can find the Danny Miller. We will talk at you guys next week. Hopefully there is something positive to talk about. There's some positive things happening up on the White Sox, and hopefully it's the kind of positive thing that doesn't lead to too many wins and we still get a decent draft pick. But we'll see.
Time will tell.
Yeah. So anyway, my name's Ian. That's Danny. Over there. We will talk to you guys next week. You have a good night as well, Pusher. Grimtal, have a great night.
Good night, guys. Thanks for checking in.
Yeah, and we will talk to you guys next week on Monday. You guys have a great night. Thanks. Bye.